My name's Linda Brown, and I've recently moved to this town. Due to my mom's influence, I've come to love shopping at Target. And the good thing about this place is that the store is just a few blocks away from my apartment. At least that's what I thought before that incident. I was thrilled to discover Target 5 minutes from my place, so I went there to buy some stuff for my new home. Shopping in my comfort is something I love, and that store had just that. The woman who worked as a cashier was amiable, making me a regular at that place. But then one day, she told me she was going on pregnancy leave, and another cashier would join the next day as her replacement. A week later, I saw a man in his late 20s instead of her. I can't say why, but something felt strange about it. And while it might have been my imagination, I was subconsciously hyper-aware of the new cashier. The way he looked at me while ringing my items felt uncomfortable too. It wasn't just then, but whenever I visited Target after that, he would stare at me weirdly, scanning me from head to toe, making me highly edgy. So I decided not to go there anymore and chose a different store to buy whatever I needed. One day, when I was walking back from shopping, I noticed him standing on the road I needed to pass by, smoking. I tried my best to ignore him while his gaze followed me. And as I walked past him, I couldn't help but notice him mouthing some vulgar word to me. A strange fear crept up to my skin, making it crawl, but I successfully managed to walk away. Unfortunately, it didn't stop there. As I headed home from work one evening, I spotted him standing by an alleyway. It was as if he had anticipated my arrival that time, sending chills down my spine. These weird coincidences kept repeating, which made me think he was stalking me. And the fact that he would always say some bad words to me was getting on my nerve too. So I reported this to the police. He did not get arrested since he had done nothing to harm me yet, but he did receive a restraining order. I thought it all would end there, so I loosened up a little. It was the weekend that day, so I was relaxing at home when Jade called me. She wanted me to visit the salon with her. More like threatened me into coming since I wanted to laze around all day. I wasn't even surprised that she spent 3 hours there and then dragged me to buy a dress for her upcoming date night. Jade, can I please go home? I'm tired from all the walking. I stopped in the middle of the road and whined like a kid. Fine, you can, but after getting some drinks. I was about to throw a tantrum at her words when she grabbed my hand and pulled me with her. I did go to the bar with her, but despite her forcefulness, I denied having a drink since I used to experience a nasty hangover whenever I had glasses. It was around 8:40 or 45 p.m. when I reached home only to find the apartment door unlocked. I was sure I locked it behind me when I headed for Jana's, which meant someone had broken in. 911, what's your emergency? The female operator asked on the other end. Someone has broken in my apartment, I said, giving her my address. She told me some officers would reach my place within 15 minutes and asked me to stay careful by then. I went inside with silent feet while carefully scanning the area, praying not to run into whoever was in there. That was when I heard footsteps coming from my bedroom and walked there sneakily, only to notice it was a mess. My clothes spread all over the floor while my undergarments were on the bed, along with a man who was lying over them. At first, I couldn't see his face, but when he turned around, it was him, that new cashier at Target. He had a nasty grin, and his eyes rolled back while touching himself. The scene horrified me so much that I ran outside my house. The thing he was doing was so nasty that it sent shivers down my marrow, and I started to feel nauseated. He probably heard me, for he ran after me and caught me, and before I could scream, he put a hand over my mouth slapped across my face from the other and started dragging me inside. I struggled and tried to get away from him, but he started punching me to keep me under control. A kick came to my gut as I blocked the door with all my force, since my senses told me that if he managed to take me inside, he would do something horrible and irreversible to me. Tears started to fall from my eyes as I received multiple kicks that followed the first one. He looked at me with that evil smile still on his face, with monstrous intent. Thanks to my quick thinking, I had already called 911 because that was when the officers arrived and pulled him away from me. I coughed up blood as I fell down to the floor. One of the officers came to my aid and asked if I wanted them to drop me at a hospital on their way to the police station, but I refused. The man glared at me till the end, but I was relieved he was arrested. I should have just stayed at Jenna's, I thought, as I leaned against the wall. That night, I spent wailing and taking painkillers to subside the pain. I threw the clothes away that were on the floor the following day, as they only haunt me. Even though I got my injuries checked at the hospital the next day, and they disappeared within a week, something continued hurting me. Nothing happened after that, but the fear of him being there continued to lurk inside my mind. The creepiness, the smile, and that horrible scene had imprinted on my brain, reminding me each day that someone else could be as twisted as him, just waiting to strike. No matter how hard I try, I cannot make him disappear. He is there when I'm working and a male employee looks at me. He is there when I'm at a cafe buying my favorite coffee. I was never this paranoid person, but now that I'm suspicious of every person, whether they are friendly or rude, it makes me sick.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so. I worked at Target in around 2010. It was a cool job. All I had to do was sit around, do the paperwork, and other things people do. I was the manager at the Target, and I got hooked up as a manager because my cousin had a good relation with the store owner. I was around 25 when I got the job, and I had no experience prior, so getting that job was a privilege, and I very well knew it. So I was one of those managers who worked too much, even though there was less physical work to do, but I was knee-deep in all the paperwork. The thing with Target is that it is a big store, and the thing with big stores is that it comes with a large number of annoying people. Target is a big store, and a day don't go by that there's not some lady or middle-aged man flipping out over the products. It was one headache that we constantly had to go through, and even though we were not allowed to really be aggressive to customers, there are times when you want to do things to them that you cannot really do. But there isn't much you can do than just sit and listen and solve whatever issue they are having. It is tough, but it is something that we have to do in order to make it better. One day, things were very hectic at the store, and it was then that things got out of hand with one of the customers. Things were as usual as they always were, and the store was busy. The chaos was being managed just fine, and when we thought things cannot be weirder, they did, spiraling into a chaotic shit fest when suddenly an angry customer wanted a refund. And we told him about the refund policy, but he just won't admit that he was at the wrong one here, and we had no choice but to call in security. He wanted to talk to me, and I told him there was no way that we could do anything about the thing, and he was quite aggressive about it and demanded to see me. I got out, and then he told me, "You better give me my refund or it's going to be really bad for you. I will make sure you shit bricks for the rest of your lives." I looked at him and I said, "Sir, our refund policy is a bit different, and the product you brought in has been used like multiple times. We cannot really refund you your money, but if you want us to replace your product, we can happily do that." And the man looked furious and said, "I want my money, dumb bitch." And I told him that it cannot possibly be done. He told me that he will come back for me and teach me a lesson. Now, it wasn't the first time that I was being told that my life is in danger, but then it wasn't the first time that someone said that they will kill me. But this time, the man was bigger than anyone I have seen, and his eyes were red as the sky during sunset. He was accompanied out of the store by the police. I wasn't really scared by the man. More like this time it felt like it was more real than before. And this time, it felt like the warnings were somehow real. As the police accompanied him away from the store, I could see his red eyes filled with anger and hate looking right at me, as if he wants to kill me. I called in the inspector in the evening asking whether the man was released from the prison, and the policeman said, "We had nothing against him. He did not really commit a crime, he was just being an asshole. We don't really put people in jail if they are assholes." I said, "He wanted to kill me. I think you should have kept him in the prison." The policeman replied with a chuckle. He was probably coked out of his mind. He probably doesn't remember you, and secondly, if he does, don't worry. We will arrest him before he kills you. Now, the way he talked all sarcastic and wise-ass, I didn't think that the police will be much help when the guy comes in and tries to kill me in the store. I was slowly getting paranoid by all of it. There was something about the rage in this guy, and I could see. I was having flashbacks of his eyes with volcanic anger. I was scared for my life. Moreover, I was scared, what if he finds out where I live? It will be so much easier for him to just come in and strangle me while I was vulnerable. I wasn't sure about this guy, and he was easily in my head this time completely. I made sure that I am not being followed. The first thing I did was buy a taser. I did not want to be defenseless if he approaches me. I wasn't the one to be fooled around with. I was thinking of buying a gun before, but that would be too irrational of a response. Now that I think of it, every response that I had was irresponsible. I remember having nightmare about the guy confronting me in the parking and killing me. It's like never before. It was the Monday morning, and all my weekend had been spent thinking about what if the man confronts me? What will I do, and how will I defend myself? So I was a bit cranky and anxious the Monday morning into work. I stepped out of my car where it was parked and went about my day. The day went calm and easy, and there was no angry man spotted, and surprisingly, the Monday went by easy. There was no confrontation this Monday, and things went smooth, so I was a bit relaxed, and there was no sign of that big man anywhere. And then, as I was moving to the parking lot as the day was ending, and I was getting back after closing in the shop and getting done with all the accounts and paperwork, I saw the light flickering the parking, and it was just me and the other car in the parking lot. I did not know who it was. I looked at it, and I was a bit nervous, and there was this eerie feeling that I had that something wrong is about to happen. And then I slowly approached my bag and took the taser in my hand. I had that feeling that somebody was standing over me. I looked back, and I saw the same old man standing tall right behind me, and before he can do or say anything, I reacted with the fight or flight reaction. But instead of running, I stood my ground and I tased him. And as I tased him, he fell. And as he was getting down, I could see the flowers dropping out of his hands, and I was realizing that I had acted too fast. I saw the man picking up, trying to get back to his senses, and then looked at me and said, "Well, fair enough. Guess we are even. I'm sorry for my behavior earlier. I apologize." And then handed me the flower, and told me to give it to the staff. And I asked him if he's alright and apologized for tasing him. Well, good thing I am not worried about him killing me anymore, for he knows that the tables can turn on him too.
Born on January 17th of 1991, Lauren Spierer was the daughter of Charlene and Robert, an accountancy couple from Scarsdale, New York. After graduating from Edgemont High School in 2009, Lauren enrolled at Indiana University. She was an active and good-natured young student and volunteered for many charitable causes. For example, she had spent the previous spring break planting trees in Israel on behalf of the Jewish National Fund, combining her two passions of travel and public service. As you can imagine, Lauren's attitude made her a very popular young woman, and her circle of friends seems to have been a consistent and positive one. You see, Lauren had met her college boyfriend, Jesse Wolfe, as well as her best friend, Jay Rosenbaum, during a summer camp in the hillside town of Honesdale, PA, and a handful of her other close friends at Indiana University had also attended the summer camp. The point is, it seemed that Lauren was part of a tight-knit unit of friends who both loved and trusted one another, which makes it all the more alarming when we learn what happened to her. On the night of Thursday, June 2nd, 2011, Lauren and her friends visited the nearby Kilroy Sports Bar. In an effort to save on what little cash they had, Lauren and her friends partook in what's known as pre-gaming, where people drink store-bought alcohol before going out to a bar or club. The group of friends were also notorious for only venturing out into the night during the wee small hours. Kilroy's also catered to this kind of crowd, keeping their bar open until 4 in the morning, and CCTV footage from that night doesn't show Lauren and her friends arriving until about 1:46 a.m. For the first 45 minutes or so, everything appears relatively normal. Lauren and her friends have drinks, they dance, they play pool, everything you might expect from a group of college kids soaking up the nightlife. But then, around 2:27 in the morning, Lauren's behavior takes a somewhat bizarre turn. It's around then that Lauren gets up and walks out of the bar, leaving her cell phone on the bar top and her shoes on the floor near her seat. After exiting Kilroy's, she is then quickly followed by a friend named Corey Rossman. Rossman seems confused as to why Lauren left her things behind, but seems only too happy to follow her back to her apartment complex. At exactly 2:30 a.m., Corey and Lauren enter the Smallwood Plaza Apartments complex that Laura called home. It's here they remain for exactly 28 minutes before CCTV once again captures them leaving the apartment complex. Only instead of walking back to the bar, where Lauren's phone and shoes are still sitting there, Lauren and Corey walk down an alleyway that connects College Avenue and Morton Street, the same alley where Lauren's purse and apartment keys would be found the following day. CCTV footage then catches Lauren and Corey arriving at the latter's apartment at around 3 in the morning. This footage shows Lauren to be a little worse for wear, but Corey Rossman is somehow absolutely trashed by this point. Corey's roommate, Michael Beth, later said that he had to clean up a puddle of vomit that Corey left in the stairwell that same night, and that Corey was so drunk that he had to be put to bed. Michael added that once this was done, he then tried to persuade Lauren to sleep over for her own safety. However, Lauren insisted that she wanted to return to her own apartment, probably citing her need to find her missing possessions. And so at 3:30 a.m., Michael Beth called Lauren's friend Jay Rosenbaum, telling him he needed to come take care of her. We can only assume he answered in the affirmative because a short while later, Lauren shows up at Jay's apartment with a rather large bruise under her eye. Jay later said that he was worried about the injury, but after Lauren told him she didn't know how she obtained the bruise, Jay assumed she'd gotten it during a drunken fall from earlier in the evening. However, of all the CCTV footage we have of Lauren and her friends, there are no recorded incidents of falling, and no recorded incidences of people fussing over her eye, which we could then use to estimate the time and place of such an injury. By 4:30 a.m., Lauren hasn't had an alcoholic drink in over 2 hours and is no doubt beginning to sober up. Granted, she wouldn't have been in the best condition of her life, but she is no doubt realizing that she's lost pretty much everything she brought out with her, being her phone, keys, shoes, and purse. In light of this, we can understand why Lauren was reluctant to sleep it off when she could actively go about recovering some of her lost items. Lauren then left Jay Rosenbaum's apartment at around 4:30 that morning, last being sighted on CCTV footage headed south from the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue. Several hours later, Lauren's boyfriend, Jesse Wolf, sent her a text which she failed to reply to. And when a reply did finally roll in, it was from an employee of Kilroy's Sports Bar, saying Lauren had left her phone there overnight. Not long after, given he had zero means of getting in touch with her, no one had seen her that morning. Jesse contacted the local campus police to report Lauren missing. After 3 weeks of fruitless search, August of 2011 saw local police and FBI agents undertake a week-long search of the nearby Sycamore Ridge landfill site. Needless to say, it wasn't looking good for Lauren, as cops were evidently looking for a body, or more accurately, parts of a body, as opposed to a living, breathing person. But despite their efforts, law enforcement didn't manage to find a single shred of evidence that clued them into Lauren's condition or where she might be. The investigation dragged on for years without a break, and this is in spite of more than 3,000 tips called in from the general public. Then, on the morning of April 25, 2015, a hint of Lauren's fate was unearthed not far from where she went missing, yet it goes without saying that it was not a good one. The lifeless corpse of a University of Indiana student, Hannah Wilson, was discovered in neighboring Brown County. She was last seen getting into a taxi in front of the very same bar that Lauren had visited on the night of her disappearance. Lying on the ground near her body was a cell phone, one that police determined was owned by a local 50-year-old man by the name of Daniel Messel. He was arrested, tried, and convicted of Hannah's murder, and police deduced that he might well be the same person responsible for Lauren Spierer's disappearance too. However, in July of that same year, nationally renowned private investigator Bo Dietl concluded that after his own extensive investigation, he'd found nothing to seriously link Hannah's murder to Lauren's apparent abduction, and any similarities were purely coincidental. Yet right when it seemed that all hope was lost, the winter that followed Hannah Wilson's murder saw the FBI pursue its first serious lead. In the early hours of January 28, 2016, FBI agents were assisted by local law enforcement in serving a search warrant to a property in the 2900 block of Old Morgantown Road in Martinsville, approximately 20 miles north of Bloomington. The rather dry official statement from law enforcement was that they were following up on leads and tips in Morgan County regarding the disappearance of Lauren Spierer. But in reality, they had strong suspicions that a man named Justin Wagers was responsible for her murder or abduction. Wagers, who lived with his mother and stepfather, had been named and identified on multiple occasions as having exposed himself to local women during incidents that were characterized by aggressive and generally terrifying displays of depravity. Cops let cadaver dogs loose in the Wagers' home and found that they indicated for human remains in a nearby barn. However, after conducting a dig and sifting dirt from the floor of the structure, investigators found zero evidence of anyone having been buried there. As the years went by, Lauren's parents sadly announced that they believed their daughter to be deceased. Yet they've also been very open about their suspicions that someone very close to her may have been involved in her disappearance. Not only have they wondered aloud if someone might have slipped something in her drink while she was at Kilroy's, they also had no qualms with casting suspicion on the men she was with that night. Lauren's boyfriend at the time, Jesse Wolf, has also professed his distrust of Corey Rossman, Michael Beth, and Jay Rosenbaum, as not only did all three refuse to take police-issued polygraph tests, but all three lawyered up in the days following her disappearance, apparently completely unprompted to do so, as she was still considered very much alive at that time. Rossman, Beth, and Rosenbaum then publicly stated that they had passed privately administered polygraph tests, which apparently proved their innocence. They were also completely unapologetic regarding them hiring attorneys, and stated that their refusal to cooperate with Bloomington police was down to them not trusting law enforcement. A theory was batted around that Lauren may have died as a result of a drug overdose, one resulting from narcotics obtained from either Rossman, Beth, or Rosenbaum. If that was the case, it's plausible that all three or a combination of the men could have conspired to dispose of her body so that their guilt would never be suspected. Obviously, hiring lawyers and refusing to take a polygraph doesn't exactly make the three guys look good. But in all fairness, it's highly inadvisable to talk to police officers without a lawyer present, especially since all three guys knew well their friend was missing. What's more, Polygraphs are so unreliable that they're no longer admissible in court, and the police were most likely just looking to get the three guys in an interview room so they could browbeat them into incriminating themselves. So, in light of that, we have to consider other options. But having exhausted the possibilities of either Daniel Messel or Justin Wager having killed her, time and time again we're forced to consider the accidental overdose angle. I truly don't think it was a random abduction. I think that somebody that Lauren knew was responsible for the events of that evening, her mother publicly stated in 2014. And she may well be correct. Statistically, most people are murdered by someone they know, sometimes pretty intimately too. And it doesn't seem out of the question that those three young men with big, bright futures ahead of them wouldn't want to throw them away by admitting they'd given a girl too much to drink or too much of something a little less than legal. So as much as people focus on stranger danger, or of that random creeper who becomes the source of their untimely demise, maybe people should start looking a little closer to home, to those who profess to love or care for us, who might actually disappear us, dispose of our body, or bury our names, just to protect themselves.